Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Brain Cancer Podcast. Now, this isn't going to be a numbered episode or anything like that, but I just wanted to sit down and have a chat about how it feels coming up on my 6 years of having a glioblastoma brain tumor diagnosis. I suppose I should start back in the beginning, maybe do a bit of a reintroduction of my story and briefly catch anybody up to how we're where we are today. I don't really have a script and I'm really just sitting down and talking, so I hope that you can bear with me here just for a little bit. I think it was July of 2016 when I first started experiencing these headaches that Tylenol wouldn't touch. And as the days and weeks went on, I started getting nauseous. When I would go on the train to go to Cambridge on Tuesday to play cards, I would only make it one stop on the train before I'd have to get off at the next stop, throw up in a trash can, come back home, and then go to sleep. This went on for probably about 4, 5, 6 weeks, maybe. It's really difficult to remember as everything was building up inside of my brain that I didn't know about yet. Then my personality started changing. I became angry, aggressive, short-tempered, and basically the polar opposite of the person that I am now, the person that I've always been. Like many people, I initially put it down to stress due to an upcoming move from one apartment to a different apartment in the same neighborhood, but it was still a move nonetheless. I was trying to navigate that along with work, and my unknown tumor at the time was causing all sorts of issues both in the workplace and in my relationship at the time, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Once we got into September, it started to get really bad. Looking back, I have almost no memory of the entire month of September 2016. I very nearly lost my job. I bought 3 tickets to New York City, all 4 different times on the same day that I have no memory of ever buying. And like I had mentioned, most of September is just one blur. I don't remember any of it. When things really came to a head, I happened to be out at dinner. I went to slide out of the restaurant booth and ended up on the floor. That was a little bit awkward. But we'll fast forward, going to the ER, having a CT scan show a large mass in my brain, being admitted into the hospital, having surgery scheduled for Monday morning, which was I was admitted very late on a Saturday night, almost into Sunday. I spent Sunday at the hospital trying to process everything that was going on. And then Monday morning, I had my surgery at MGH, which lasted about 9 hours, if I recall correctly. I remember some of the prep. I had blood work, MRI, and in all of the chaos, I didn't really know what to expect, what was even going on, how I would recover from this, or anything else that most brain tumor patients all face when they don't have the time to prepare, like many of us really don't. It takes some sort of serious event like a seizure to finally discover that tumor that's been growing and putting pressure on our brains. When I woke up, I felt like myself again. I had my personality back, in addition to a headache and a very swollen face, but I felt like myself. Everything was gone. All of the pressure, it was gone. Sure, I had a headache, but I felt like myself again. And it was the most relieving feeling after I woke up that I knew I was who I was, and it was the old me. I went home on Wednesday afternoon just to recover. I made sure to walk every day, get outside, because this is my favorite time of the year when the leaves start changing and the weather cools down a little bit, and it's just the perfect kind of weather for me. I had 52 staples that came out, and I had multiple meetings with the radiation oncologist and my new doctor, and a flurry of other appointments, such as getting my radiation mask made, another MRI before we had started the treatment plan that my doctor and I came up with. I initially did not do temozolomide because I had qualified for a clinical trial for an immunotherapy called durvalumab. I've talked about this on other episodes. I don't remember exactly which episodes, but you can always reach out and ask me, and I can always send you the clinical trial data that was gathered from this particular trial. I had a great response to it, and I was able to complete the trial and then do another 3 years of maintenance therapy beyond my trial completion date because I responded so well to this drug. We move forward into 2020 and 2021. Right at the end of 2020, not too long after I had finished up my maintenance therapy of my immunotherapy drug, these two little nodules had reappeared in my tumor resection cavity. We had watched these two nodules, and then by May of 2021, we decided that it would be a good idea to go in and remove them because we had watched them grow a little bit and kind of move around. So we scheduled surgery for about 2 weeks later. I went in for the 8 a.m. surgery, woke up in the afternoon. I think it was maybe like 1:30, somewhere around there. I don't exactly remember. And then I was back home the next morning by 10:15 after I'd picked up my prescription at the pharmacy down the hill and walked back up to my place. I had stitches this time, and I actually think it healed up even better somehow. Also note, I did have the same neurosurgeon who did both of my surgeries. His name is Dr. William Curry, and he is one of the top neurosurgeons in the country. I am so thankful for the treatment that I got and still get at MGH. Without access to some of these clinical trials, doctors, new treatments, and everybody that works there, I'm so lucky to live in a city like Boston where it's nearly impossible to walk into a bad hospital. If you go to pretty much any hospital here, you're going to get good care. There are many, many good hospitals, many dedicated neuro-oncologists. And that is really one of the best things that I have here living in Boston. So after that, I did 6 cycles of temozolomide by dosing my temozolomide in the mornings because there is now studies that have shown the benefit to taking your temozolomide in the morning as opposed to the evening. Currently, I'm on another cycle of chemo, just still going, feeling fine, no problems. That brings us up to the current day. It is a few days before my official 6-year anniversary, so that I have enough time to edit this. I wanted to make sure that I gave myself enough time to be able to do a little bit of editing, although I don't expect to do too much because I really wanted to just sit down and talk. Sometimes I'm reading articles and I have to pause in between to click my mouse or move things around on my screen so you don't hear me clicking and tapping the keys and all that stuff. So I pause the recording and then restart it once we're going again. Or if I mess up, then I have to go back and re-record a sentence. But in this case, I'm really just sitting here talking. And my voice is not exactly cooperating, but I think I'll give it a pass this time. Not only am I thankful for still being here 6 years later, I'm so thankful for all of you. I remember I had won a local fantasy football league and wanted to invest the money in something good. When I was newly diagnosed, I wanted to find resources and learn as much as I could about brain tumors, brain cancer, and pretty much everything related to it, but without falling down into the crazy internet rabbit hole that can be WebMD telling you everything that is going to give you cancer when you already are here. I wanted to create a podcast for all of us where I could talk to people and I can take a single subject and just break it down in the terms that we all understand. You're hearing a lot of new terminology when you're newly diagnosed. People don't know what IDH mutations are, or MGMT methylation status, or any of the other half dozen or dozen mutations which can drastically affect your own personal prognosis. Most people don't even know, or at least I didn't know anything about brain cancer. It was all news to me. Part of my coping mechanism was learning as much as I could because I wanted to, I guess, have some sort of control and knowledge so that in addition to trusting my doctors, I would feel like I'm also making the best decision for myself. It can be really overwhelming. It's also important that you have people around you that support you and that you surround yourself with good people. I hear it all the time about people who say that they will always be there for somebody, but when they're diagnosed with brain cancer, they kind of just drift away. But I've also heard stories about people who might have past connections that they may have just drifted away from, who came back when this person was diagnosed with brain cancer and became a great supportive person in their own lives. If that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it as best I can. I also want to add that having a therapist is definitely a good idea. It is a huge help, and even if you schedule just one per month, that's better than zero. Sometimes when I'm sitting here, it's like I have a hard time putting into words exactly what I want to say when I don't have a particular topic in mind. But I can't put into words exactly how much you all have changed my life. I love doing this. I've met so many amazing people through this brain cancer diagnosis, through this podcast, that I wouldn't change any of it. Sure, it's a bad diagnosis, and it might not be the best way to meet people, but I've met some of the best people that I've ever met through this and through my brain cancer diagnosis. I wouldn't change any of it. I'd also like to say that I don't do any ad reads or sponsorships or anything like that. I've gotten emails about putting things into the description for people who have listened to certain episodes, certain like startup businesses or financial advising companies. And I really, really don't want to push anything on any of you, especially something that I can't fully vet myself and that I wouldn't use. I'm not trying to sell anything on the show. It's all paid for. There will never be any commercials, anything like that. That's not the point of this podcast. I cover the hosting costs. I certainly don't expect it to, but if it ever came to it, I'd find a way to make sure that our show stays up and it keeps going for as long as I can. And I would never ask any of you for anything other than for you to focus on yourself and your own diagnosis. I just want everybody to have access to information. It also feels good just knowing that there are other people like us out there. I had mentioned that we are over 20,000 downloads. I actually haven't looked in about a week or so, but we do get a pretty decent amount of listeners every single week from all over the world. And I'm so thankful that I can be of some help and be a bit of a break during your diagnosis, or as a caregiver, being there to just give you a little bit of a distraction. There are a lot of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful that you've chosen to give me a chance. So here's to 6 years, and here's to another 6 more. I think we got this, guys. If you would like, feel free to head to facebook.com/braincancerpodcast and give the show a like. You can leave a review as well and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you are using. I would really appreciate that. You can send me a message on there, although it's usually easier if you just email me at braincancerpodcast@gmail.com. If you ever need to talk or anything, we can always arrange that. If you want to come on the show and tell your story, we can certainly arrange that. I can handle all of the recording here on my end, so you don't have to do anything other than just call me. We can use Discord or Zoom, whatever might work best for you. You can follow the page on Twitter at twitter.com/braincancerpod. Once again, I will say I hardly ever use that, and I really need to get in the habit of doing that, or at least retweeting out relevant articles. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always available. I check my email every day. I try and respond to everybody within 24 hours. Sometimes it might take an extra day or two depending on my work schedule. The past month was really, really difficult because the Orange Line was shut down here for an entire month. So it was taking me an hour and 45 minutes to get to work and another hour 45 to get home. By the time I got home in the evenings, sometimes I was just too tired and I would just flop on my bed and kind of just crash out and fall asleep. But the Orange Line is reopened. We can get back on a good schedule. We are heading into my favorite time of the year, and I've got a whole bunch of really good ideas to come. Once again, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day or night, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.